Still building gaming rigs at 30, my sister Victoria mocked me at Thanksgiving dinner, telling the whole family I was a loser living in Mom's basement while she flashed her $30,000 engagement ring. At least it keeps him busy and away from drugs, she laughed, making all the cousins laugh along while I carved the turkey in silence. 3 hours later, her fiancé Derek came down to the basement desperately asking for help because he'd discovered through his ring cameras that she was having an affair with her personal trainer. The turkey breast was half carved when Victoria stood up, her champagne flute catching the candlelight as she tapped it with her knife. The dining room fell silent, 23 family members turning to look at my sister in her designer dress that probably cost more than my entire month's earnings. I kept my hand steady on the carving knife, already knowing what was coming. "I just want to say how grateful I am this Thanksgiving," Victoria began, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she'd perfected during her years in corporate marketing. "Grateful for my amazing career, my beautiful apartment in the city, and of course, my incredible fiancé Derek." She held up her left hand, letting the massive diamond catch every light in the room. Our cousin Rachel actually gasped. I focused on making clean slices through the turkey, the blade cutting smoothly through the meat while my sister continued her performance. "And I'm grateful for family, even the ones still figuring things out." Her eyes landed on me with surgical precision. "James is still living in Mom's basement at 30, building computers for teenagers who want pretty lights in their gaming setups. But you know what? At least it keeps him busy and away from drugs, right?" The entire table erupted in laughter. Uncle Tom slapped his knee. Aunt Jennifer covered her smile with her napkin. Even Mom looked uncomfortable but said nothing, her hands fidgeting with her water glass. Derek, Victoria's fiancé, had the decency to look embarrassed, shifting in his seat and studying his plate like it held the secrets of the universe. I set down the carving knife very carefully and met Victoria's eyes. She was waiting for me to react, to defend myself, to give her more ammunition. Instead, I smiled and picked up my own wine glass. "To family," I said simply, taking a long drink. The disappointment on her face was subtle but unmistakable. She'd wanted a scene, wanted me to either blow up or slink away in shame. My calm acceptance of her public humiliation had stolen her thunder. What Victoria didn't know, what none of them knew, was that her perfect life was about to shatter like cheap-tempered glass. Because while she'd been busy climbing corporate ladders and posting Instagram stories about her luxury lifestyle, I'd been doing more than just building gaming computers in Mom's basement. I'd been building something else entirely, something that would make her $30,000 ring look like costume jewelry compared to what she was about to lose. But for now, I just carved the turkey and let her enjoy her moment of triumph. After all, the higher they climb, the harder they fall, and my sister had climbed very, very high. The rest of dinner crawled by with excruciating slowness. Victoria held court at her end of the table, regaling everyone with stories about her recent promotion to senior marketing director and the vacation to Bali that Derek had surprised her with last month. She made sure to mention the cost of everything, from her Louboutin heels to the Tesla Model X Derek drove. Every few minutes, her eyes would flick toward me, checking if I was sufficiently humiliated yet. I ate my turkey in silence, nodding politely when spoken to, playing the role of the disappointment she'd cast me as. Let her think she'd won. Let them all think it. Around 9:30, the dinner party finally began to wind down. Aunts and uncles bundled into coats, cousins hugged goodbye, and Victoria made sure to give everyone her card, reminding them that her marketing firm could absolutely help with your business's social media presence. Always working the angles, my sister. I was downstairs in my workshop by 10, headphones on, working on a custom water cooling loop for a client's high-end rig when I heard the basement door open. Heavy footsteps on the stairs, too heavy to be Mom. I turned to find Derek standing in my workshop doorway, his tie loosened and his face pale. "James, I need your help," he said, his voice shaking slightly. "It's about Victoria." I pulled off my headphones slowly, taking my time, watching him fidget with his phone. "What about her?" Derek glanced back up the stairs, then closed the door behind him. "I think she's cheating on me." "No, I know she is. I have proof, but I need someone who understands technology to look at it, to tell me I'm not crazy." This should have been satisfying. This should have been the moment I'd been waiting for, the crack in Victoria's perfect facade finally showing. But something in Derek's face made me pause, made me actually look at him as a person rather than just my sister's accessory. He looked gutted, holding his phone like it contained evidence of his own execution. "Show me," I said quietly. Derek sank into my spare chair, the one I usually reserved for clients during consultations, and pulled up his phone. "We have Ring cameras," he explained. "Front door, back door, the one by the garage. I installed them 6 months ago after the neighborhood had a string of break-ins. Victoria thought I was being paranoid." He pulled up the Ring app and navigated to his saved videos. "I was reviewing footage from last Tuesday, just checking on a package delivery when I saw this." He handed me the phone. The video showed Victoria's luxury apartment building's entrance. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. Tuesday afternoon, when she should have been at work. The footage showed Victoria entering the building, but she wasn't alone. She had her arm around a man, clearly not Derek. The guy was younger, athletic build, wearing gym clothes. They were laughing, intimate, the body language unmistakable. "That's Kyle," Derek said flatly. "Her personal trainer. She's mentioned him before, said he's helping her prepare for the wedding, wants to look perfect in the dress. I thought it was just training sessions at the gym." He swiped to the next video. This is from an hour later. Same camera angle, same entrance, but now Kyle was leaving alone, his hair wet like he'd just showered, a satisfied smirk on his face that made my jaw clench. Victoria appeared 15 minutes later in the next clip, also freshly showered, checking her phone as she walked to her car. "There's more," Derek whispered, swiping through his camera roll. 3 weeks of footage, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, sometimes Wednesday mornings. She tells me she has early meetings or late client dinners, but the cameras don't lie. I handed the phone back slowly, my mind already working through the implications. This wasn't just proof of an affair. This was documented, time-stamped, location-verified evidence. This was everything a divorce lawyer would need to paint Victoria as the villain in their breakup story. "Why come to me?" I asked. "Why not a lawyer or a private investigator?" Derek laughed bitterly. "Because you're the only person in that house tonight who Victoria can't manipulate. Everyone else worships her, thinks she's this perfect success story. But you see through her bullshit, don't you? You always have." He wasn't wrong. I'd watched Victoria perfect her mask over the years. The transformation from my sometimes annoying little sister into this polished corporate weapon who saw people as either assets or obstacles. But hearing Derek articulate it so clearly, seeing him broken by her betrayal, stirred something unexpected in me. Not pity. No. What I felt was opportunity. "I can help you," I said slowly, "but I need you to trust me completely. Can you do that?" Derek nodded without hesitation, desperation overriding caution. "Anything. I just need to know the full truth before I confront her." I leaned back in my chair, fingers steepled, considering the chessboard that had just appeared before me. "The full truth is going to be worse than what you've already seen. Are you sure you want me to dig deeper?" "Yes." His voice was steel now, the shock transforming into cold determination. I pulled my laptop closer, cracking my knuckles. "Give me access to your Ring account. All the cameras, all the footage, everything. And I'll need Victoria's phone number, email, and any social media accounts you know about." Derek rattled off the information without question, watching as my fingers flew across the keyboard. What he didn't understand, what Victoria definitely didn't understand, was that building gaming computers was just my side business. My real expertise, the reason I could charge premium prices to certain clients, was in digital forensics and data recovery. The gaming rigs paid the bills. The forensics work paid for everything else. "How long will this take?" Derek asked. "Give me until Monday. Don't confront her. Don't change your behavior. Don't let on that anything's wrong. Can you do that?" He swallowed hard. "We're supposed to meet with the wedding planner tomorrow afternoon. Look at venues." "Perfect. Go to that meeting. Smile. Take pictures for Instagram. Let her think everything's fine." I met his eyes. "Because when this comes out, Derek, it's going to be nuclear. And I want to make sure you're protected when it does." Derek left 20 minutes later, looking marginally more composed. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I got to work. Ring cameras were useful, but they only told part of the story. What I needed was Victoria's digital footprint, the trail she thought she'd covered. I started with her social media, public posts first. Instagram showed the carefully curated life she wanted everyone to see. Workout selfies with Kyle the trainer, date nights with Derek, professional photo shoots in her corner office. Every post was a performance, every caption calculated for maximum engagement, but social media algorithms were predictable. I used a custom script to analyze her posting patterns, her interactions, her location tags. Tuesday and Thursday afternoons, she'd post stories from work or client meetings. But the metadata told a different story. The photos were taken hours earlier, scheduled to post while she was actually at her apartment with Kyle. Smart, but not smart enough. By midnight, I had compiled a timeline of the affair spanning 4 months, much longer than Derek had suspected. Kyle Morrison, 29, owned a boutique fitness studio in downtown Chicago. Former college athlete, minor social media influencer with 38,000 Instagram followers, and according to his public posts, living his best life training elite clients. Elite clients who apparently included sleeping with engaged women. I downloaded every Ring video, backed up every timestamp, created a spreadsheet documenting each encounter, but that wasn't enough. Victoria had humiliated me in front of our entire family, had spent years treating me like a failure, a cautionary tale she trotted out whenever she needed to feel superior. This required something more than just exposing an affair. This required total annihilation. Saturday morning, I attended Victoria's wedding venue tour. Mom had insisted, saying family should support family despite tensions. I drove my 10-year-old Honda Civic, parking between Derek's Tesla and Victoria's leased BMW. The venue was a renovated industrial space in the West Loop, all exposed brick and Edison bulbs, the kind of place that cost $15,000 just for the rental fee. Victoria barely acknowledged my presence, focused entirely on taking Instagram stories of every corner, every detail. "This is where we'll do the ceremony," she narrated to her phone, panning across the space. "Isn't it absolutely perfect?" Derek stood beside her, playing his part flawlessly, though I caught the tightness around his eyes, the way his smile didn't quite reach them. The wedding planner, a woman named Cassandra who probably charged more per hour than I made in a day, walked us through timeline options, catering packages, floral arrangements. "And the guest list?" Cassandra asked. "Tablet at the ready." 200, Victoria said immediately. "We have a lot of important people to invite. Derek's business partners, my colleagues from the firm, industry connections. This wedding is as much about networking as it is about celebration." I watched Derek's face carefully when she said that. Saw the micro-expression of hurt before he masked it. So that's what this was to her. A business opportunity, another chance to perform, to show everyone how successful Victoria Williams had become. The tour lasted 2 hours. By the end, Victoria had selected everything from napkin colors to champagne brands, each choice more expensive than the last. Derek's credit card got a workout that afternoon, and my sister never once asked if he was comfortable with the costs. She just assumed, the way she always assumed everyone would bend to her will. As we walked to our cars, Victoria finally spoke to me directly. "Thanks for coming, James. I know family events aren't really your thing." Her tone suggested she'd rather I hadn't shown up at all. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied neutrally. "The venue's nice, very Instagram-worthy." She laughed, the sound sharp. "Everything's about Instagram these days. You should try it sometime. Might help your little computer business." She slid into her BMW, sunglasses on, already checking her phone as she drove away. Derek lingered by his Tesla, waiting until Victoria was out of sight. "Monday," he said quietly. "You said Monday." "Monday," I confirmed. "And Derek might want to take Tuesday off work. You're going to need it." Sunday night, my phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. "Family brunch tomorrow at Mom's, 11 a.m. Be there and try to look presentable for once." Perfect timing. I replied with a thumbs-up emoji and went back to my final preparations. The data I'd compiled was devastating, but data alone wasn't enough for the kind of justice I had in mind. Victoria operated in a world of appearances, of social capital, of carefully constructed image. To truly destroy her, I needed to attack her where she lived, her reputation. I spent Sunday night creating a comprehensive digital presentation, complete with time-stamped videos, location data, screenshots of text messages I'd recovered through methods Derek's lawyer would probably rather not know about. Kyle and Victoria had been incredibly careless in their communications, confident that no one was watching. Text messages discussing their affair in explicit detail, complaining about Derek's clinginess, planning their next encounter while Derek worked late at his accounting firm. But the crown jewel, The piece of evidence that made everything else look tame came from Victoria's laptop backup. She'd saved everything to the cloud, probably for some misguided sense of preservation or because she thought cloud storage was more secure than it actually was. Among her files was a document titled Wedding Budget Final, and inside that document was something that made even my blood run cold. Victoria had taken out a personal loan for $55,000, forged Derek's signature on the cosigner line, and used the money to pay for wedding expenses he didn't know about. The loan documents were buried in her email, along with correspondence from the lender and payment schedules that would start coming due 3 months after the wedding. She'd literally committed financial fraud against her own fiancé to fund a wedding that was, by her own admission, primarily a networking event. Monday morning arrived with crystalline clarity, the November sun streaming through my basement windows. I dressed carefully, choosing actual pants instead of my usual jeans, a button-down shirt Mom had bought me last Christmas that still had the tags on it. If I was going to burn down my sister's life, I was going to look good doing it. The brunch was scheduled for 11, but I arrived at 10:30 while Mom was still setting up in the kitchen. "James, you're early," she said, surprised, "and dressed up. What's the occasion?" "Just felt like making an effort," I replied, setting up my laptop on the dining room table. "Mind if I show some family photos later? I've been digitizing old albums, thought everyone might enjoy seeing them." Mom's face lit up. "That's wonderful, honey. Yes, of course." Victoria and Derek arrived at 11 sharp, my sister impeccable in designer casual wear, Derek looking like he hadn't slept in days. Mom had invited Aunt Jennifer and Uncle Tom again, along with cousin Rachel and her husband Mark. An intimate family gathering, Victoria had called it. Probably another opportunity to remind everyone of her superiority. We ate Mom's famous cinnamon rolls and drank mimosas, making small talk about work and weather and the upcoming holidays. Victoria dominated the conversation as always, talking about a major client she'd landed, a campaign that would revolutionize pharmaceutical marketing. She was animated, confident, completely unaware that her entire world was about to implode. "Actually," I said as Mom started clearing plates, "I wanted to share something with everyone. Like I mentioned, I've been working on digitizing our family photos, and I found some really interesting footage." I opened my laptop, connected it to Mom's TV via HDMI. The screen flickered to life, showing my desktop background. Victoria barely looked up from her phone. "That's nice, James. Maybe keep it short, though. Derek and I have a meeting with the caterer at 1. This won't take long," I assured her, pulling up my presentation. "I promise everyone will want to see this." The first slide appeared on the TV screen, a simple title card reading Family Memories with a date range spanning the last 4 months. Victoria glanced up from her phone, mildly curious. Derek's posture went rigid. "So, I've been learning a lot about digital forensics lately," I began conversationally, advancing to the next slide. "It's fascinating how much data we leave behind without realizing it. Photos, videos, location services, cloud backups. Everything creates a trail." The next slide showed a map of downtown Chicago with 2 locations marked, Victoria's apartment building and Kyle Morrison's fitness studio, 3 blocks apart. Red dots appeared on the map, dozens of them, clustered around both locations. "For example," I continued, "this is a visualization of location data from the past 4 months. Each red dot represents a Tuesday or Thursday afternoon when Victoria's phone pinged at these 2 locations instead of at her office where she claimed to be in meetings." The room went silent. Mom set down the plate she'd been carrying with a soft clink. Victoria's face hardened. "What the hell are you doing?" "Showing family memories, like I said." I clicked to the next slide, a screenshot of text messages between Victoria and Kyle. The preview was innocuous, talking about training sessions, but anyone could see there were hundreds of messages. Derek stood up slowly, his chair scraping against the floor. "Victoria, maybe we should go." "No," I said firmly, looking directly at my sister. "You wanted family here, Victoria. You wanted everyone to see your perfect life, your expensive ring, your fancy wedding. Well, let's show them everything." I clicked play on the first video. Ring camera footage filled the screen, showing Victoria and Kyle entering her apartment building, his hand on the small of her back, her laugh clearly audible even through the security camera's tinny speaker. The timestamp was unmistakable. Tuesday, 2:47 p.m., October 15th. Aunt Jennifer gasped. Uncle Tom's mimosa glass stopped halfway to his mouth. James, stop this right now, Mom said, her voice shaking, but I was just getting started. I played video after video, each one showing the same pattern. Victoria and Kyle entering her building, staying for exactly 1 hour, leaving separately. 4 months of footage, condensed into a 5-minute compilation that played out like a horror movie none of them could look away from. Victoria's face had gone from red to white to a blotchy purple. You broke into my accounts. That's illegal. I'll have you arrested. Actually, I said calmly, Derek gave me access to his Ring account because he suspected his fiancée was cheating. Everything I'm showing came from his cameras or public social media, but I'm glad you brought up illegal activities. The next slide appeared. Scanned copies of the loan documents, Victoria's forged signature on Derek's behalf, clearly visible next to the legitimate ones. This is a personal loan for $55,000, I explained to the room. Victoria took it out 6 weeks ago, forged Derek's signature as cosigner, and used the money to pay for wedding expenses he doesn't know about. First payment comes due in February. That's fraud, Victoria. Actual, prosecutable fraud. Derek moved closer to the TV, staring at the documents. You forged my signature? I was going to tell you, Victoria said quickly, her polished composure cracking. The wedding costs more than we planned, and I didn't want you to stress about it. You forged my signature, Derek repeated, his voice hollow. You put me on the hook for $55,000 without asking. It's our wedding, Victoria snapped, desperation creeping into her voice. Our money, our future, I was handling it. By committing fraud and sleeping with your trainer, I added helpfully. Seems like an interesting approach to marriage planning. Cousin Rachel started crying quietly. Uncle Tom looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. Mom had sunk into a chair, her face buried in her hands. Victoria turned on me with pure venom in her eyes. You're doing this because you're jealous, because I have a real life and a real career while you live in Mom's basement playing with computers. You're pathetic, James. Maybe, I agreed. But I'm not the one whose fiancé is about to leave them, whose family just watched hours of infidelity footage, and whose employer is about to find out about the fraud. That got her attention. You wouldn't dare contact my firm. I smiled for the first time since the presentation started. Already did. Sent the complete evidence package to your HR department this morning, along with the loan documents. Senior marketing directors probably shouldn't be committing financial crimes. Bad for the company image. I imagine you'll be getting a call about that around 1 p.m., right when you're supposed to be meeting with your caterer. The color drained from Victoria's face completely. Her job was everything to her, the foundation of her identity. Without it, without the income and the prestige and the Instagram-worthy office, what was she? Derek was staring at the ring on Victoria's finger, the $30,000 symbol of their future together. I want that back, he said quietly. Right now. Derek, please, we can work through this. Victoria started, reaching for him. He stepped back like she'd burned him. The ring! Now! Victoria's hands shook as she twisted the engagement ring off her finger. It caught the light one last time before Derek pocketed it without ceremony. He turned to me. Send me copies of everything. My lawyer will need it for the separation paperwork. Already in your email, I replied, along with contact information for a forensic accountant who can trace exactly where that $55,000 went. Might be able to get some of it back if you move quickly. Derek nodded once, grabbed his coat, and walked out of Mom's house without looking back. The door closing behind him sounded like a gunshot in the silent room. Victoria stood in the middle of the dining room, ringless, exposed, the perfect facade demolished. She looked at Mom, at our aunt and uncle, at Cousin Rachel, searching for someone, anyone, who would defend her or offer sympathy. She found none. The woman who'd mocked me less than 48 hours ago for living in a basement had just been revealed as a cheating, lying, fraudulent disaster. The contrast was too stark, too devastating for anyone to excuse. I hope you're happy, Victoria spat at me, grabbing her designer purse. You've destroyed everything. No, I corrected. You destroyed everything. I just made sure everyone could see it. She stormed out, heels clicking on Mom's hardwood floor, her BMW peeling out of the driveway with enough force to leave rubber marks on the street. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Finally, Uncle Tom cleared his throat. "Well, that was something, James," Mom said softly, not looking at me. "Did you have to do it like this? In front of everyone?" I closed my laptop carefully. "She humiliated me in front of everyone on Thanksgiving. Told everyone I was a loser, a disappointment, someone to pity. She spent years treating me like I'm beneath her, like my life doesn't matter because I don't have her fancy job or her expensive apartment. So yes, Mom, I did have to do it like this, because this is the only language Victoria understands." Aunt Jennifer and Uncle Tom left quickly, mumbling awkward goodbyes. Rachel hugged Mom and whispered something I couldn't hear before leaving with Mark. Within 20 minutes, the house was empty except for Mom and me. She sat at the dining table staring at the TV screen that now showed only my screensaver. "She's still my daughter, James. Both of you are my children. I know," I said quietly, but she needed to face consequences for once in her life. Real ones, not just people being disappointed in her behind closed doors. Mom was silent for a long time. Then, what happens now? Now, I returned to my basement workshop, my sanctuary, my kingdom that Victoria had mocked. Now she learns what it's like to lose everything. Victoria's world collapsed with surgical precision over the next 72 hours. Monday afternoon at 1:17 p.m., exactly when she should have been meeting with her caterer, Victoria's personal cell phone rang with a call from the HR director of her pharmaceutical marketing firm. The conversation lasted 8 minutes. By 1:26 p.m., Victoria had been placed on immediate administrative leave pending investigation into the fraud allegations. Her company laptop and phone were to be surrendered by end of business day, her office access badge deactivated. I knew this because Derek kept me updated via text, his lawyer having subpoenaed Victoria's employment records as part of the separation proceedings. The speed at which it all happened was almost beautiful, each domino falling exactly as planned. Tuesday morning, Kyle Morrison's fitness studio received an anonymous email containing highlights of his text message exchanges with Victoria, including particularly damning messages where they discussed his other special training sessions with married clients. His business partner, a woman named Jordan who owned 50% of the studio, was apparently unaware of Kyle's extracurricular activities. By noon, the studio's Instagram account posted a statement announcing Kyle's immediate departure to pursue other opportunities. Kyle lost his job 24 hours after Victoria lost hers. Poetic. Wednesday brought the best development yet. Derek's forensic accountant traced the $55,000 loan and discovered Victoria had spent it on considerably more than wedding expenses. $22,000 had gone to credit card debt she'd been hiding, $15,000 to her BMW lease, $8,000 to an investment opportunity that turned out to be a multi-level marketing scheme, and only $10,000 actually made it to wedding vendors. Derek filed a police report for fraud and identity theft Wednesday afternoon. By evening, there was an active investigation into Victoria's financial activities. I monitored it all from my basement workshop, building computers during the day and watching my sister's life implode at night. My phone buzzed constantly with updates. Derek's lawyer confirming separation paperwork had been filed, the wedding venue acknowledging their cancellation, Victoria's landlord starting eviction proceedings after her November rent check bounced. Thursday evening, Victoria finally called me. I let it ring 4 times before answering, my voice neutral. "Hey, you destroyed my life." Her voice was raw, stripped of its usual polish. She'd been crying. "No," I corrected calmly. "You destroyed your own life. I just made sure you couldn't hide it anymore. I lost my job, James. Derek's pressing charges. My landlord is evicting me. I have nothing left." The desperation was palpable, real in a way Victoria had never been real before. "You should have thought about that before you decided to humiliate me at Thanksgiving dinner," I replied. "Before you spent years treating me like I was worthless because I chose a different path than yours. Before you committed fraud against your fiancé and cheated on him for 4 months. I made mistakes," she admitted. And for a moment, I almost felt something like pity. Almost. "But this is too much. You've taken everything. Everything you took was never really yours to begin with, Victoria. The job you got through networking and manipulation, the fiancé you were cheating on, the money you stole, the respect you never actually earned. I didn't take anything from you. I just exposed what was already true." Silence on the other end, broken only by her ragged breathing. "Kyle dumped me," she finally said. "Called me yesterday, said he couldn't be associated with this kind of drama. 4 months of risking everything, and he just walked away like I meant nothing. Shocker, I said flatly, almost like people who cheat with you will also cheat on you. Who could have predicted that? What do you want, James? Victoria's voice cracked. An apology? Begging? Tell me what it takes to make this stop. There's nothing that makes it stop, I replied. This is your life now. These are the consequences of your choices. And unlike you, I'm not going to pretend to be sorry about it. I hung up before she could respond, blocking her number immediately after. She'd had her chance to be decent, to treat people with respect, to build a life based on something real instead of manipulation and fraud. She'd chosen differently. Now she got to live with those choices. Friday morning brought an unexpected visitor to Mom's house. I was in my workshop testing a liquid cooling system when the doorbell rang upstairs, followed by muffled voices, and then Mom calling down, "James, someone's here to see you." Kyle Morrison stood in our living room, looking significantly less polished than his Instagram photos suggested. His jaw was tight, shoulders squared like he was preparing for a fight. "Can we talk?" he asked, alone. I gestured to the basement door. "After you." He descended cautiously, taking in my workshop with poorly disguised condescension. The same look Victoria always gave this space, like he couldn't understand how anyone could be satisfied with such a modest setup. These people were all the same. "Victoria told me you're the reason everything fell apart," Kyle started, staying near the stairs like he might need to run. "Smart, that you somehow hacked her accounts and spied on her." "Derek gave me access to his Ring camera system," I corrected. "Victoria and you just happened to be stupid enough to conduct your affair in front of security cameras. I didn't hack anything. You two just weren't as clever as you thought." Kyle's jaw clenched. "She lost everything because of you. She lost everything because of her own choices," I replied, sitting back in my chair with deliberate casualness. The cheating, the fraud, the lies. Those were all Victoria. I just made sure people could see the truth. "You self-righteous prick," Kyle spat. "You think you're better than everyone because you exposed an affair? Victoria and I had something real. Derek was boring. He didn't appreciate her like I did. I actually laughed at that. You appreciated her so much that you dumped her the second things got messy. Real love right there, Kyle. Truly inspiring." His face flushed red. "I came here to tell you that Victoria's a wreck. She's staying at some cheap motel, can't afford her apartment anymore. Her career is over. And for what? Because she hurt your feelings at a family dinner?" "She didn't just hurt my feelings," I said, my voice going cold. "She spent years treating me like I was worthless, like my life and my choices were something to mock, something shameful. She used people, manipulated them, stole from her own fiancé. And you're asking me to feel bad that there were finally consequences?" Kyle stepped forward aggressively. "You better watch yourself. Maybe Victoria deserved some of this, but you went too far. Someone needs to teach you a lesson about knowing your place." I stood slowly, facing him directly. Kyle had 3 inches and probably 40 pounds on me, but I'd grown up with Victoria's psychological warfare. Physical intimidation was almost refreshing in its simplicity. "You're in my house threatening me after sleeping with my sister behind her fiancé's back," I said calmly. "Do you understand how idiotic that is? How I could call the police right now and have you removed, probably with a restraining order thrown in?" He blinked, some of the aggression fading as reality penetrated his anger. "Get out of my house, Kyle. And if you contact me or my family again, I'll make sure your other special training clients find out exactly what kind of person you are. I'm betting Jordan wasn't the only business partner who'd be interested in your ethical standards." The threat landed. Kyle's confidence crumbled visibly, replaced by the same fear I'd seen in Victoria's voice. He backed toward the stairs, maintaining eye contact like I was a dangerous animal. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's completely over. You and Victoria are both yesterday's news. Now leave." He left, footsteps heavy on the stairs, the front door slamming behind him. Mom appeared in the basement doorway moments later, concern etched across her face. "What did he want?" "To intimidate me into feeling bad for Victoria," I said. "Didn't work." Mom descended the stairs slowly, sitting in the chair Kyle had rejected. "James, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." I waited. Did you do all this just for revenge? Or was there something else? I considered the question carefully. When Victoria humiliated me at Thanksgiving, she didn't just insult me, Mom. She reinforced every doubt I've ever had about my choices. Every moment where I wondered if I should have followed a more traditional path. She made me feel small in front of our entire family. But exposing her like this, in front of everyone, destroying her career and her relationship, that's not just standing up for yourself, honey. That's systematic destruction. She deserved it, I said flatly. Every piece of it. The cheating, the fraud, the manipulation. I didn't create any of those problems, Mom. I just made sure they couldn't stay hidden. Mom was quiet for a long time. Finally, I love both of you. But I don't know how we come back from this as a family. Maybe we don't, I admitted. Maybe some things are too broken to fix. She left without another word, and I returned to my cooling system, my hands steady, my conscience clear. 3 weeks after the Thanksgiving dinner that detonated Victoria's life, I received a certified letter from her attorney. The envelope sat on my workbench for an hour before I opened it, already knowing what it would contain. Legal threats, demands for restitution, claims that I'd illegally accessed her private information. The letter was 4 pages of legalese that boiled down to exactly what I'd predicted. Victoria was suing me for invasion of privacy, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. She wanted $200,000 in damages plus all legal fees. Her lawyer's letterhead was from a discount legal service, the kind that advertises on bus benches. I photographed every page and sent them to Derek's attorney, who called me within 20 minutes. "This is a garbage lawsuit," she said, her voice professionally amused. "Victoria has no case. Everything you revealed came from Derek's legally accessed security cameras or from evidence she made public herself. Plus, truth is an absolute defense against defamation. She can file this, but I'll have it dismissed within weeks. Should I get my own lawyer?" I asked. "Wouldn't hurt, but honestly, this reads like intimidation more than a real legal strategy. Victoria's desperate and running out of options. Let her waste what little money she has left on legal fees. In fact, we might countersue for frivolous litigation." The lawsuit never materialized. Victoria's lawyer apparently reached the same conclusion and quietly withdrew the threat. But the letter told me something important. My sister still believed she could win through intimidation, that the rules didn't apply to her. She needed one final lesson. Derek's separation was finalized in record time, helped significantly by Victoria's complete inability to contest anything. She had no money for a decent attorney, no evidence to counter the fraud charges, and no ground to stand on regarding infidelity. Derek walked away with everything, including that $30,000 ring, which he promptly sold for $22,000. "I'm giving you $5,000 of this," he told me over coffee in early December, sliding a check across the table. "Call it a consulting fee for the digital forensics work." I pushed the check back. "Keep it. Use it to move on with your life." He stared at me for a long moment. "Why did you really do all this, James? And don't tell me it was just about the Thanksgiving dinner." I leaned back, considering how much truth to share. Victoria spent our entire lives making me feel like my choices were wrong. Like because I wasn't climbing corporate ladders or chasing status symbols, I was somehow less than her. She never saw me as a person, just as a cautionary tale she could use to make herself look better. But this went beyond just proving her wrong, Derek observed. "Yes," I admitted. "Because people like Victoria, people who use and manipulate and destroy without consequences, they keep doing it until someone makes them stop. You were going to marry her, Derek. She would have destroyed you slowly, over years, until you didn't recognize yourself anymore. I did you a favor. I know," he said quietly. "I'm grateful. Even if it hurts like hell right now." We parted ways outside the coffee shop, Derek heading back to rebuild his life, me returning to my basement workshop, where a custom gaming rig waited for final assembly. 2 days before Christmas, Mom called me upstairs to the kitchen. I found her holding her phone, her face pale. "Victoria's in the hospital," she said. "The motel called me as her emergency contact. Apparently she took a bottle of sleeping pills last night. Ice flooded my veins. Is she alive?" "Yes. They pumped her stomach in time. But James, she tried to kill herself. Your sister tried to end her life. The guilt Mom wanted me to feel, the remorse she expected didn't materialize. Instead, I felt nothing but cold calculation. Is she conscious? Can she have visitors? Mom's eyes widened. You want to visit her? After everything? Yes. The hospital was a 20-minute drive, a county facility that smelled of disinfectant and desperation. Mom led me to the psychiatric ward where Victoria was being held for mandatory 72-hour observation. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. Hospital gown hanging off her frame, hair unwashed, eyes hollow. Mom, Victoria whispered when we entered. Reaching out, Mom took her hand, tears streaming. Baby. What were you thinking? I couldn't take it anymore, Victoria said, her voice paper-thin. Everything's gone. My job, Derek, my apartment, I have nothing left. James made sure of that. She looked at me finally, and I met her gaze without flinching. You almost died because you lost your job and your fiancé? I asked flatly. Because people found out who you really are? James, Mom gasped. How can you be so cruel? Cruel would be pretending this is anyone's fault but Victoria's, I replied, still looking at my sister. You committed fraud. You cheated on your fiancé for months. You built your entire life on lies and manipulation. And when it finally caught up to you, instead of taking responsibility, you tried to take the coward's way out. I made mistakes, Victoria sobbed. I know I did, but you destroyed me, James. You systematically took everything from me. No, I corrected. You destroyed yourself. I just made sure you couldn't hide from the consequences anymore. Victoria's hands clenched the hospital sheets. So this is it? You're just going to watch me suffer and feel nothing? I feel satisfied, I said honestly. Because for the first time in your life, Victoria, you're experiencing what it's like to lose. To have your dignity stripped away in front of everyone you wanted to impress. To be humiliated and exposed and powerless. That's what you did to me every chance you got. Now you know how it feels. She tried to kill herself, Mom said, her voice breaking. Doesn't that mean anything to you? It means she's dramatic and self-centered even in her lowest moment, I replied. You want to know why I'm not falling apart with guilt, Mom? Because if Victoria had succeeded, if she'd actually died, her last act on Earth would have been one final manipulation, one last way to make herself the victim and me the villain. But she failed at that too. Victoria's face contorted with rage and despair. I hope you're happy, James. I hope destroying your sister's life was worth it. Destroying? I laughed. Victoria, you did this to yourself. Every single choice that led here was yours. The affair, the fraud, the lies, treating people like tools to be used. You built this prison yourself. I just made sure the door locked behind you. I turned to leave and Mom grabbed my arm. James, please, she's your sister. She stopped being my sister the moment she decided I was beneath her, I replied. I'm going home, Mom. When she gets out of here, if she wants to rebuild her life with honesty instead of manipulation, great. But I'm done being anyone's punching bag, family or not. I left Victoria crying in that hospital bed, left Mom torn between her two children, and drove back to my basement workshop without a shred of regret. Christmas came and went quietly. Mom spent it at the hospital with Victoria, who remained under psychiatric hold for evaluation. I spent it alone, building computers and watching the gaming community's end-of-year award shows. The day after Christmas, Derek texted me. Victoria's lawyer dropped the lawsuit. Case dismissed. Thought you'd want to know. I replied with a thumbs up and went back to work. 6 months later, I stood in my new workshop, no longer a basement, but a proper commercial space I'd leased in a small industrial park. Business had exploded after word spread about my digital forensics skills. Apparently, Derek had recommended me to several colleagues going through divorces, and suddenly I had more work than I could handle. My custom PC builds still paid the bills, but the forensics consultations funded expansion. I'd hired 2 employees, both young technicians with solid skills and no interest in corporate politics. We built high-end systems for gamers and content creators, recovered data for law firms, and occasionally helped people uncover truths they needed to see. The space was clean, professional, with my business name printed on the glass door, J.R. Williams Digital Solutions. Mom called one afternoon while I was calibrating a new workstation. Victoria wants to talk to you. 6 months of silence, and now this. About what? She's been in therapy, working at a coffee shop in Naperville, living in a studio apartment. She says she wants to apologize. I don't need her apology, I replied, testing a graphics card installation. James, please. She's been doing the work, really trying to change. Can't you give her one chance to make things right? I sighed, looking around my workshop that Victoria had once mocked as a basement hobby. Fine, she can come here. Thursday at 2, but Mom, I'm not promising anything. Thursday arrived with typical Chicago humidity. Victoria showed up exactly at 2, driving a beat-up Toyota Corolla that had to be 15 years old. She wore jeans and a plain t-shirt, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. No designer labels, no carefully curated image. She looked like a completely different person from the woman who'd flashed her engagement ring 6 months ago. Nice place, she said quietly, looking around the workshop. You've built something real here. What do you want, Victoria? She took a breath. I want to apologize for everything. The way I treated you, the things I said, making you feel like your life was less valuable than mine. You were right about all of it. I was manipulative and cruel, and I deserved everything that happened. I waited, saying nothing. I've been in therapy twice a week since I got out of the hospital, she continued, working through why I needed everyone to think I was perfect, why I used people instead of connecting with them. The therapist says I have narcissistic tendencies rooted in deep insecurity, which is apparently ironic. That why you're here, to share your diagnosis. I'm here because I need you to know that what you did, exposing everything, it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Her voice cracked slightly. I know that sounds insane, but it's true. I was living a lie. James, everything about my life was performance and manipulation. I was miserable and I made everyone around me miserable. And now you're working at a coffee shop making minimum wage, so you've learned your lesson and we should all forgive you? Victoria flinched but held my gaze. No, I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I'm genuinely sorry for the person I was, and that watching you refuse to let me hide from consequences taught me more than anything else could have. I studied her carefully, looking for the manipulation, the angle, the performance, but all I saw was exhaustion and what might have been genuine remorse. I'm glad you're getting help, I said finally. And I hope you build a better life than the one you had. But Victoria, I meant what I said in the hospital. You burned our relationship down to ash. Maybe someday there's something salvageable, but that day isn't today. She nodded slowly. I understand. Can I ask one thing, though? What? Are you happy? Living your life? Doing your work? Being yourself without worrying what people like me think? I considered the question. My business was thriving. I'd moved out of Mom's basement into my own condo. I was respected in my field. More importantly, I'd proven that success didn't require Victoria's version of it. The climb and the performance and the desperate need for external validation. Yes, I answered honestly. I'm happy. Happier than I've ever been. Something like genuine happiness flickered across Victoria's face. Good. That's good. You deserved that all along. She turned to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, you were always the stronger one. I just couldn't see it because I was too busy pretending to be strong myself. After she left, I stood in my workshop surrounded by the humming computers, the tools of my trade, the tangible proof of what I'd built. My phone buzzed with a new client inquiry. Someone's husband had been acting suspicious, and they needed phone records analyzed. I smiled and opened my calendar. Business was good. Life was good. And Victoria was finally learning what it meant to earn respect instead of demanding it. Mom called that evening. Victoria said you two talked. She's crying, but she said they were good tears. I'm not ready to have her back in my life, Mom. Maybe I never will be. I know, honey, but thank you for hearing her out. That took strength. After we hung up, I looked around my empty condo, at the gaming setup I'd built myself, at the life I'd constructed without compromise or apology. Victoria had called me a loser for living authentically, for choosing passion over prestige. She'd mocked my basement workshop while committing fraud to maintain her facade. Now she served coffee and lived in a studio while I ran a successful business doing exactly what I loved. The best revenge wasn't just exposing her lies. It was living well while she rebuilt from nothing, proving every day that I'd been right all along. My path, my choices, my basement hobby that she'd ridiculed, it had all been worth more than her designer clothes and corporate title and fraudulent engagement ring. I opened my laptop and got back to work, building systems that would outlast any facade, solving problems through skill instead of manipulation, creating value through honest work. Victoria had spent years trying to make me feel small. In the end, she'd made herself smaller than anyone ever could have, and I'd moved on completely, unburdened by guilt or regret, satisfied that justice, real, proportional, permanent justice, had been served exactly as it should have been. Some people learn through kindness. Others need to lose everything before they understand that actions have consequences. Victoria got exactly what she needed, and I got exactly what I deserved. A life built on my own terms, successful by my own definition, untouchable by anyone who'd ever tried to diminish it. That was the real victory. Not her destruction, but my construction. Not her falling, but my rising. Not revenge at all, really. Just the natural order of things finally asserting itself. And it felt absolutely perfect.